I use those situations to glorify God. It is a blessing to me. Well, we talked last week about walking in faith, or walking by faith. And if we can get that put up on the board, that sermon from last week, I want to just go through it real quickly. Our key verse was Hebrews 11, verse 6. And it says, but without faith, everybody read that with me. This is a good verse to memorize. But without faith, it is impossible to what? Please Him, please God. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him, of them that diligently seek Him. Amen? Amen. I love that verse. You should have that memorized. It's impossible to please God without faith. First of all, we talked about that last week. Pull that sort of real quick, just the outline. And faith experience, the call, the choice, and how God expressed that faith through Him. He lived in God's path. He looked for God's promise. He leaned on God's providence. And his faith expected. It had a heavenly hope for a heavenly home. Who was I talking about last week? What's his name? Huh? Starts with A. Did you say Abraham? Oh, I didn't catch that. Abraham. Everybody say Abraham. Abraham. He's the father of our what? Faith. And we're to walk in that same faith if we're going to please God. It's impossible to please Him without faith. Amen? So we just got to believe God. Amen? Everyone say believe God. Believe God. All the time. For every situation. Walk in faith. Hallelujah. Whatever comes my way, so I take a step. Whatever I bump into, believe God. Believe God. Because with God, all things are what? Possible. Amen? And without God, we can do nothing. But with God, we can do all things. So, man, we're crazy if we don't have faith in God. It's wonderful. And I love that. But it's more than just faith. In fact, there's a train. Did you ever hear of the TO train? You've heard of the BO train, the Baltimore, Ohio train? How many heard of that? BO train? Okay. Well, there's a TO train. It's the train that takes you to heaven. And that TO train is trust and obey. Amen? That's the journey we're on. Trust and obey. Faith without obedience is dead, James said. The Bible says that if we believe, the Bible teaches us, if we believe, we will behave. Amen? If you don't behave, it means you really don't believe. Isn't that right? I believe that with all my heart. If you really, really believe something, you're going to trust God. You're going to see it. And you're going to act out on that in your daily life. And so I want to talk today, if pleasing God involves walking in obedience. Amen? The Bible says, without faith it is impossible to believe God. But without faith it is impossible to believe God. But he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him. So that faith always leads to obedience. And if you say you really believe, you will be obedient to God. And so the promises of God are always conditional. And God always puts conditions on those promises for us. And I want you to get that this morning as we get into this thought of obedience. Jesus said, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Matthew 7:21. In Matthew chapter 7, he goes on. Tisha sang about that this morning, about building your house upon the solid ground. And he went on there and he said this from verse 24 on to the end of that chapter in chapter 7. He says, therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man to build his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And when the rain floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon the house, it fell, and great was the fall thereof. So if you obey, you stand with God. If you disobey, you're going to sink. It's your choice. Amen? Amen. Jesus was quite adamant in saying this in many references to Jesus saying that if you love Him, what? Keep His commandments. In John chapter 14, I love these various sayings. This is in the last week of His life. Just days ahead, He's going to be crucified. And this is what He had to say. Just in giving you a framework to let you know that I'm not just, some of you just believe. Just believe. Just believe. Just have faith. You can't please God just with faith. You've got to diligently seek Him. You can't just take one little phrase and build a whole doctrine on it. You've got to take the whole gospel. And what did Jesus say? If you love me, keep my commandments. In chapter 7, chapter 14, verse 21, He says this, so that the servant came and showed himself the Lord these things. Then the master of the house quickly... I'm in the wrong. I'm in Luke. Sorry about that. That didn't make sense what I was reading there. Oh, He said, peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Hallelujah. For it goes to verse 24, is the verse I really wanted. He that loveth me keepeth not my sayings. And the word which ye hear is not mine, but the Father's which sent me. These things have I spoken unto you, you being yet present with you. And so He's letting us know in His word, in verse 20, He says it this way. Jesus answered and said unto him, if any man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and He will come unto him and make an abode with him. John 15:14, He said it this way, ye are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. And on. I have many verses here where Jesus, just the words of Jesus said, if you believe, you will act out your faith before God in every way. And so I want to talk today about obedience. It is a key to bringing the pleasure of God upon your life. You want to please God, you want to bring the smile upon God, you've got to learn to obey what God has said to you. And we have a tough time with obedience. From the time we're born, we just have a tough time. We're stubborn, we're rebellious, we always want to do exactly what we're told not to do. Isn't that right, young people? Tell me. I mean, whatever mom and dad tells you to do, you want to go to the exact hour, because mom and dad don't know a thing until after you reach 30 years old and you begin to realize, Dad and Mom, not so bad. Austin said, I think I'm doing the right thing. And I think he is. That's a young 19-year-old that is making some right choices for his life and has done that down through the years, where that's a situation where I believe Mom and Dad got it wrong, but he got it right. And I love that. And I got it right when I was 17 too. I started doing the right thing even though Mom and Dad weren't. Later on, Mom and Dad joined in, started following the Lord. Sometimes you have to lead the way. But I know this, the only way you're going to please God is by obedience. And I want to use a story in the Bible to illustrate this, and I trust it will be a blessing to you. In John chapter 2, that's where Jesus worked His first miracle, and just a beautiful story of God's goodness to us in every situation. He went to a wedding. How many remember the wedding of Cana? And Jesus went to that wedding. I want to read some verses to you in John chapter 2, starting with verse 1. And it says this, in the third day, there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called and His disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, they have no wine. And Jesus said unto her, woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother saith unto the servants, whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he said unto them, draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, he knew not whence it was. But the servants which drew the water knew. And the governor of the feast called the bridegroom and saith unto him, every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when the men are well drunk, then they give them that worst wine. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. Hallelujah. Lord, bless your word, God. Help us learn obedience from these 11 verses, God, and the power of obedience. And how that obedience gets your attention. You look upon your people when they obey you with a smile. Teach us that this morning. Anoint your word in Jesus' name. And everyone said, Amen. Amen. What kind of obedience does God want? Huh? Instant. Don't preach my sermon. Come on, Kim. Give me a chance. So make it a lot shorter. That's one of my points, not the exact way I would say it. First of all, our obedience has to be entire. That is the scope of obedience. God doesn't want partial obedience. He wants complete obedience. So it needs to be entire. No matter what God asks, we should say yes. Everyone say yes. Yes. Now look to heaven and say yes. Yes. Yeah, he loves to hear that. Yes, Lord. Whatever. It says the entire scope of it is going to be and should be to say yes to God. I love that. It says, whatsoever he tells you to do, verse 5, do it. Whatsoever. The entire, whatever it is he asks you to do. And God can ask you to do a lot of things in life. Most of the time we go through life and we don't even hear what God's saying because our ears are closed to him. But I'm telling you, God is always speaking. God is always moving. Most of the time it's in a still small voice. And most of us, because of the noise all around us in this world that we live in, God couldn't get our attention if he wanted to. But all his sheep hear his voice. God wants us in whatever situation to be able to hear his voice and to say yes, Lord, to whatever it is that he has for us to do. So it does, we have a restricted obedience. I'll do it, Lord, as long as I want to do it. Or if I have pleasure in it, God, then I'm going to do it, I'll do it heartily, yes, unto you. But I've got to have pleasure in it. If I don't have pleasure in it, I'm not going to do it. Does that kind of obedience please God? No. That's restricted. You're doing it according to your will and not the will of God. God can't stand a restricted will. Not my will, thy will be done. And then you have a required obedience. God says, do it or else. Like the Jonah situation. You want to live? You better start praising me and you better start obeying me. He was down about 400 feet underwater. He had to think it over for about 2 seconds and he said, I think I'll worship you, Lord. God, I think I'll go. I'll go to Nineveh. I promise you, God, I'll go. I'll pray for those people. I'll preach to those people, whatever. God went to that well right out of the water, spit him out. And Jonah went and did it. But it was required. It would have been a lot easier if he'd just done it. Wouldn't have been swallowed, go through the shipwreck and everything else we went through in life. And so many times we go through so much before God can really get into our heads. This is my will for your life. And to resist my will is the most foolish thing you'll ever do. We're to resist the devil, not God. Amen? Amen? And so we can't have a resistant type of obedience to God. Saying, Lord, I know this is what you want me to do, but I don't want to do it. I don't understand what you're doing. Because I can't understand it, I'm not going to do it. The people are more cursed than we are. You want me to go and preach to them? Lord, what benefit could be that? You know what the benefit was? 1 million people bowed their knee to God that day when he preached to them in Nineveh. And God turned back his judgment for 100 years upon that people of Nineveh because of the voice of Jonah. He couldn't see that, he couldn't understand that, but I'm telling you, God did. And sometimes God will ask you to do things you cannot understand. It won't make sense to you. All I can say is, just do it. Amen. Hallelujah. Remember Ollie North? Remember when they questioned him, and Ollie North said, look, if my commander chief tells me to go in that corner, stand on my head, what am I going to do? I'm going to go there and stand on my head. Whatever he tells me, that's what I'm going to do. That's kind of the kind of obedience that God wants. It's called a resigned obedience. Obedience that says, doesn't matter what you ask me to do, whatever it is, I will do it. Amen? He requires an entire obedience to him. Whatsoever he saith to you, do it, even if it doesn't make sense. Exclusive obedience. Whatsoever he, Mary was saying, whatever Jesus says to you, do it. And remember, if Jesus tells you to do something, it will always align with his holy word that's been established for 3,400 years going back, or 600 years going back to the days of Moses. And so it's an exclusive obedience. Whatsoever the Lord would ask you to do it. Peter and James and Peter and John were locked up for preaching the gospel. In Acts chapter 5, they threatened them and said, you're not to preach this gospel anymore, not to talk about this Jesus anymore. And the Bible says the moment they left that council, Peter said to them and to the other apostles, they answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man. That's what they said. And what do you know what they did when they left that meeting? They said they don't preach Jesus anymore. They walked outside the door, got right up there on the porch, and what's the very first thing they began to do? Started preaching Jesus. Ended up in prison again. Raged the devil. Eventually Peter lost his life, and they went through so many persecutions and everything, but they would rather suffer for righteousness' sake and obey God than to obey man. Amen. The Lord speaks to your heart. You must obey if you're going to please God. Amen? Amen? And the key is to walk so close to him that you can hear his voice. Whatever he would tell you to do, you should be able to hear it. If you're a sheep, you'll hear his voice. If you're not hearing the voice of God, you're not a sheep. There's something wrong with you. You're walking so far from God, far away, and you cannot hear the call of God and the whisper of God. And what he's saying to you, I believe this, if you're walking in the presence of God and you're diligently seeking him, amen? If you're really seeking him and his face and his words to you, then you're going to hear the voice of God. You'll be going, and the Lord, you'll wake up in the morning, the Lord will speak and he says, you know, Ron, you've been feeling really bad towards your wife. And you haven't told her you loved her for the last 2 days. Don't you think this is time for you to tell your wife, go over there and give her a big hug and tell her how much you love her? Ron's, because he's in tune with God. God says, you know, it's been a couple of days, I've not told her that I love her. He just goes and says, hey, babe, I love you. Love you. Put your arm around her. You know how powerful that is when God tells you to do something? What that happens in your own life. God will speak to me. Go witness to someone. Or he'll tell me to go and ask somebody to forgive me. And he'll later on, I'll wake up, or I'll be thinking early in the morning, I'll get a thought. I say, man, I wonder if that offended John. I wonder if that offended Jeff. I wonder if that offended Russ. I wonder if what I did was wrong. And I'll call him and say, hey, it's been on my heart. I hope what I said to you didn't hurt you, offend you in any way, and ask him to forgive me. Just obeying the Lord, hearing that voice of God. It can be good, or it can be something bad you did. God's correcting you, or God's encouraging you, or using you to encourage someone else. It's just a good thing, hallelujah, to be hearing the voice of God exclusively, cutting out all the other sounds around us and getting in tune with God and being able to hear when God speaks to you about what you should do. It might be about buying a car. It might be about not buying a car. It might be buying a piece of property or not buying a piece of property. It could be about practical things. It could be about spiritual things. God is speaking. He is concerned about every affair of our life. Amen? Amen. Every affair. And I'm telling you, I somebody, it doesn't matter. I just want to be able to hear from God and I'll be obedient to what He says. There's times I said no, and then I've gone away and God's dealt with me and says, no, you gave the wrong answer. You should have said yes. I've had to go back to the person and say, I want you to forgive me. That answer should have been yes. We should have helped you. We should have done this. And so learning that. And it needs to be not only an obedience that is exclusive, that sounds out. I remember just concerned that in Africa, we was getting ready to go to Africa. My wife and I were 21, never did ministry, didn't have any support, had $125 support for a month. Now they raised $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 to go to Africa. My wife and I had not raised any support at all. The organization that was sending us said, we'll give you $125 a month plus $75 business expense, $200. And we'll pay your ticket and we'll provide a mud house for you. No stove, no nothing else. Got a house. Didn't even know at that time it didn't have doors on it. Mom and Dad weren't too happy about it. Brother and Sister Culver thought, kids, are you sure this is God? And my mother-in-law said, whoa, I don't know. I don't have too much trust in that organization, and you guys are too young, you're crazy, and everything else. You know, I have been following my heart to what God is speaking to me for 4 years. 4 years. I knew it was the will of God. I knew I was supposed to go. And I had all kinds of voices, good voices. People that loved us, tried to protect us from making stupid mistakes in our life. And yet I knew that I'd heard the voice of the Lord. And I stepped out in faith, believing God. And I stepped out in obedience. And guess what? God blessed us. God kept us. God established us. It's still growing. And God is blessing it over and over again. I think God is 21 years of age. We just obeyed the Lord. And only my wife and I know the hell we went through just trying to say yes to God. But I'm thankful to this day that we said yes. And we respected our elders even in the process of doing that. And loved them and had compassion on them. And stepped out and did what God, and they backed us. They wanted us to succeed. It's not that they wanted us to fail. They wanted us to succeed. After we got there, they did everything they could to help us to accomplish what God had called us to do. And I love that too. But I'm telling you, sometimes it's not easy to exclude everything else out and just listen to what God is saying. These guys did that. And it has to be exact obedience. Whatsoever He saith unto you, do it. Exact obedience. Entire, exclusive, exact. Just like Moses when he was building the tabernacle. In Exodus 25, verse 9, he says this, I want you to build it according to all that I showed thee, after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all the instruments thereof, even so shall ye make it. I want you to do it exactly the way I tell you. Every dimension, every cubit, every design, every height, every type of metal, every type of wood, every type of color. I want it to be purple and then white, and then I want it to be badger skin, and I want it to be goat skin, and I want it to be seal skin. And they told him exactly how I want you to make the curtains and the rods and the pillars, and do it exactly this way. You understand? He gave me instructions for 40 days up on top of the mountain. He told him exactly what he wanted him to do. And when Moses came off that mountain, he did exactly after the pattern that God had shown him. And that pattern became a representation of salvation and the kingdom of God and the glory of God. To this day, we use it as a typology of how to approach God and please God in the way that we live. God wants us to have exact obedience. That God wants to do is just like He asked us to do it. Amen? Amen? Then I want you to see the way they obeyed. They obeyed quickly. Verse 7. Verse 7. John says this. Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water. And what did the Bible say they did? Verse 7, chapter 2. He said them to fill the water pots with water, and what did they do? They filled them up. Amen? That's pretty quick. They didn't say, why? They didn't question the reasoning behind it. He just says, take them and fill them up. I love it. They obeyed quickly. If you hesitate, and so many times, in so many ways, we miss God when we pause to consider the consequences or the embarrassment that it might cause. And so we don't do it. Witness to that one, give to that one, or do this. Or you start thinking, well, will they get offended? Or will this happen? Or will that happen? We start looking at all the consequences. When He speaks, move quickly, obey God. Yes. I'm telling you, God will bring a reward to you and bless you abundantly. I mean, one time, I think I told this story where God gave me, a man gave me $100 at a camp meeting for my wife and I, for Africa, to work for us personally. He said, this is for you personally. I'm giving this to you, and I want you to use it personally. As he gave me that $100, immediately, I mean, not even within 1 second, God spoke to me and says, give that to David Cook, missionary trying to go to the Philippines. He said, already been effort, give it to David. I walked over to David. I said, David, the Lord told me to give you this $100. He said, well, what? I said, no, you take this $100. I put his hand. I said, God told me to, David. And he started crying. He said, little boy, we don't even have food. And we don't have gas. And thank you so much. This is the greatest gift I ever gave to anybody in my entire life. Really. I mean, I've given away thousands of dollars. That was the greatest $100 I've ever given to anybody in my lifetime. Those tears, and it ministered, they went on to the Philippines, did a great work for God. Just lost his wife a few years ago, and Wendy over in Elmira, New York, great man of God. And we're dear friends in this moment, we're dear friends. And he'll never forget that $100. I'll never forget the joy of just being obedient, doing what God asked me to do. Quickly obey the Lord. Amen. Don't hesitate. How many offerings have not been given because you didn't listen to God? How many missionaries have failed to go to the mission field just because he didn't say yes, Lord, when he was dealing with them and they should have said yes or no and they hesitated? How many gifts have not been used or given to the kingdom of God just because people thought that it wasn't God? They're just thinking this in their own mind. How many prayers have not been prayed? How many phone calls have not been made? How many people have not been known? How many have ended up in hell just because you did not quickly obey God? Amen. Quickly. He said, fill the jugs, don't hesitate, fill them. Amen? Amen. I'm telling you, it works. But when you're filled with excuses, I've got to bury the dead, or I've got to get married, or I've got to buy this cow. Jesus was filled with all kinds of excuses. I got to go back and say goodbye to my parents, then I'll come and follow you. Jesus said, no. If you go back, then don't come. He said, if you're going to follow me, follow me. If you turn back, just go back. I want you to follow me now. This is the choice you're going to make. Are you going to follow me, or are you going to follow the other voices and sounds and needs of this world? What do you want? Who are you going to put first in your God, in your life? Quickly. Respond to God. When you don't, you miss God. So obedience that is quick, obedience that is complete. It's going to be completely. They filled them up to the brim, Bruce, all the way till it was overflowing, running down the sides. They filled up. They didn't leave anything. I'm sure when Jesus was looking at that, he's going, woo, boy, they got an extra cup of wine out of this. Hallelujah. And they just filled it right up to the brim, overflowing, and they had no clue what was going to happen. How many would have ever dreamed that all of a sudden it was going to be turned into wine? They did it completely. If you want the favor of God and you want to walk with God's pleasure upon your life, you need to go all the way with God. Think of Jericho. It would have never been conquered if they had only walked around it 6 times. Think of Naaman. And when he went to the waters to get healed, and went to Elijah and he said, go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. What if he had only gone down 6 times? What would have happened if he would have said, I'm sure he didn't have any faith. He just didn't have faith. He said to his mate, I expected him to say, something great did I have to do? Give him $1 million or buy him 20 camels or do something great. I'd be happy to do that. He told me to go and dunk in the Jordan River, the filthy, dirty Jordan River. We got better rivers right here in our town. Why would he have me do this? And the mate says, just do what he said to do. Just do it. Just do it. Please do it. He says, well, you better work. And I can see him on the 4th time. He goes down 4 times and comes up all muddy and dirty. And he looks over at the maid. Buddy, your job is on the line. Just go down again. I can see his maid. Go one more time. He goes down, comes back up. Nothing. One
complete obedience. 7 is the number of completion. Always in the Bible, it's the number of completion. It was just a sign that God was saying, if you're going to obey me completely. Amen? And that works. It works every time for the glory of God. Many other illustrations. They obeyed. They obeyed completely. They obeyed continually. Listen to this. And he said to them, draw out now. After they draw and put it, he says, grab those jugs now. Verse 8. And he says, bear them unto the governor of the feast. The Bible says, and they bear them. They took those jugs of water, spilled some of it, carried it, I'm sure, and they took it as carefully as he could to the governor. So what was obedience doing? It was still obeying. And obedience that God can bless is obedience that's not just a one-time obedience. It's an obedience that follows through and everything to God. Just because he tells you one thing one day doesn't mean he's not going to tell you anything for the next 6 years. As he speaks to you one day, beware, he's going to speak to you again and again and again and again. I believe with all my heart, God is speaking every day to our hearts and lives. And most of us don't hear it because our ears aren't in tune. But I'm telling you this. If you learn to just continue to obey and listen and obey, listen and obey, God will speak, God will show you, God will work in your life. God will give deliverance and victories and work wonders in your life. I don't know how many of you God has spoken to. You've resisted God and not let God do what he wants to do in your life. If you learn just to quickly, hallelujah, completely give in and serve the Lord, and then continually do it day after day after day. Just learning to obey the Lord. Paul admonished him, please continue. He says, oh, you foolish Galatians, how quickly you've been deceived. How quickly you've been led astray. You were once walking in the Spirit, now you're walking in the flesh. He says, keep on doing good. That's what he says in the Galatians. He says, and let us not be weary in well-doing. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. So it's a continual obedience we must have unto the Lord. That's what we want. So what happens? What happens when we're obedient and we follow the Lord? You see the obedience God wants? And the way that they obey quickly, completely, continually. But what happens when we obey the Lord? What happens when obedience is what we're trying to do and please him with our faith in him? I believe this, with their supernatural intervention. The water was turned to wine. That which is impossible, Eugene, suddenly becomes possible. That which you couldn't understand, and you thought this was all crazy, all of a sudden, whammo, a miracle, the glory of God. Something marvelous happens, and you walk away going, whoa, what did I just see? What did I just hear? What just happened? This is unbelievable. Did you see that? Did you hear it? The time, the servants were looking at each other like, whoa. They didn't understand. The governor didn't know what that was. It was water just a few seconds before. But those servants did. Who do you think God likes to speak to, George? Just us simple people. That's what he loves to speak to. It's hard to speak to governors. It's hard to speak to presidents. It's hard to speak to some of these people because the sounds around them are so political and powerful that they can't hear the voice of God. But oh, we young little servants, we humble little runts, we young people, we older ones that found ourselves in the house of God, we're the ones God can reveal his glory to. When no one else knows what's going on, we'll know what's going on. If we learn, hallelujah, to obey. Amen. Supernatural intervention. I don't know how many times the Lord has stepped in supernaturally. I could go on with many, many illustrations. I know this. Jesus looked at those 10 lepers, and he said to those 10 lepers, they wanted to be clean. He says, go to the priest and be clean. And as they got up and started going, the Bible says, and as they went, their leprosy fell from them. The leprosy fell. He says, go and be washed by the priest. And as they got up and just obeyed and started going, all of a sudden the leprosy, their skin turned beautifully pink, and all the sores and everything disappeared from their bodies. And the other 9 went on. One guy, he was so shocked by it, he went back And he said, thank Jesus, Lord, thank you, thank you, thank you. And he says, where's the other 9? Where's the other 9? Well, they're going off to the priest. But I'm telling you, when we learn to just do what Jesus tells us to do, we'll see the supernatural happen in our life. God will use you. You'll pray for the sick and God will heal them. This is if God's told you. Don't blame everything on God. Because if God tells you to do something and it don't happen, it probably wasn't God. It wasn't God. I tell you, there's been times God has told me to do this, to do that, many things in my life. I've got up, I've gone to many people. I've gone to people early in the mornings, late at night. I've gone to people, done what God told me to do. Went to one missionary one time, and the Lord laid on my heart to go see him. I went to his house to see him the next morning. First thing I went to his house to share a word with him that God had given to me in the night. And as I gave it to him, he began to weep and cry and shake all over and say, this is the Lord. This is the Lord. Thank you. Brother boy, thank you. I have been struggling with something in my life, and you have just brought the answer to me. I said, wasn't me. This was God. I'm just doing what God told me to do. I'm telling you, those experiences are the most wonderful God moments you'll have in life. It's called supernatural intervention. And you see seas open up. You'll see dry ground appear before you. You'll see fire coming down from heaven. And then you'll see a rain coming down. You'll move the hand of God by your obedience. God will be pleased with you. And you'll ask whatsoever you will, according to His will, with His pleasure, and He shall do it. And you'll get to see that intervention by God that is supernatural for His glory. Not only is it just a supernatural intervention, it's a wonderful transformation. Their sadness was turned into gladness. He said, whoa! Usually they save the worst wine for the end of the deal, the best wine for the end, the best wine for the beginning. And how is it? They save they give the best for the last. The last. He says, you've given the best to begin with. And the governor was confused and he had no clue what had happened. He didn't know that it had been turned. He missed the whole thing. But these servants were jubilant. They were jubilant. It was a wonderful moment for them to see what God was doing. And the transformation, I guarantee you, those servants would never, ever be the same. Amen. Amen? Amen. Jesus said, follow me. When you follow Him, things happen for the glory of God. Amen. I love it. A powerful revelation. A powerful revelation. It says, this beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee and manifested His glory, and His disciples believed in Him. Verse 11. Obedience helps us reveal to this sin-sick world the majesty and the glory of God. Where God wants you to be, doing what God wants you to do, in God's timing, it will bring glory and honor and majestic glory and honor and a revelation of who God is and what God can do to a world. I'm telling you, they're longing to see God. We would see Jesus was the cry of the Greeks. It's the cry of the world today. We would see God, who He really is and what He can really do. And we can shut the mouths of lions and see the mighty power of God manifested in our lives to a sin-sick world if we would just learn one word. Obedience. Obedience. Whatsoever He saith unto you, blessed say. Do it. Just do it. Simple, isn't it? Profound yet simple. And you cannot please God if you don't diligently seek Him. If you don't diligently obey Him. If you don't allow God to control your life, you will never have the blessing of your life like God wants you to have. Obedience. Everyone say obedience. Obedience. I'll say this. Lord, help me to be obedient. Help me to hear your voice and to follow you. When I think of those disciples, as you said to them, come, follow me. And how they left their boats, the seats of tax collecting. I think of those that had other occupations. And they were just young and older. Some were married, some were not. Some that you asked them to follow, it was so easy, and for others it was a great, great difficulty, yet they arose and they followed you. And to see what came from that following to this very hour is absolutely a marvelous revelation of the kingdom of God that we have today. God, let us realize that this revelation is not stopped. And that what you did back then, you're still doing today. And you're just looking for a people that'll say, here am I, Lord, send me. You're looking for a people that when you speak, follow me. They'll be quick to say, yes, Lord, yes, Lord. When you ask them to go to somebody that maybe is hurting or going through difficulty, but you don't even know that, the Lord just speaks to you and tells you to go. And Lord, you would deal with that heart of that person that's hearing your voice. They would make that phone call, send that note. Lord, go to that house and do whatever you ask them to do to minister to a hurting, lost soul. And God, begin to use us to build your church. Use us in this assembly, Lord, to walk in such an obedience that would reveal to this world who Jesus Christ is. Lord, help us today. Anoint us with the spirit of obedience, that whatsoever you would say unto us, we would do it. And I'll thank you for it in Jesus' name. How many here struggle with obedience?
A little bit.
Raise your hand. Struggle. I struggle with obedience. I have to get up here and preach this like I'm Mr. Perfect and I do it all right. I pick all the good stories to tell you. I don't tell you all the bad times I missed God. I didn't do what He told me to do. I lived to regret it. That's why I can preach with such conviction. Because I know what works and I know what don't work. Because I've done it. I disappointed God many times and didn't have the smile of God. But the times I have had the smile of God, it's such a joy to my life. And I want to live. I don't know how many more years I have to serve the Lord. Maybe I'll end tonight. I don't know. But I want to live every day. Just obeying Him. Hearing His voice, saying yes. Wherever it leads, whatever He asks me to do, I want to do it. Just yesterday, the Lord told me to call a couple of people. And I called one. I didn't call the other one. I got carried away with another voice. I forgot to call the other one. I woke up this morning. And the first thing that came across my mind, you didn't call him. That's a voice. Might have been here, they wasn't. I don't know. But it should have. Should have called me. God spoke to me to do it. He only asked me to call 2 people yesterday. I called one. For the life of me, I don't know why I didn't call them. I woke up this morning thinking you're preaching on obedience and you didn't even obey me. So I had to deal with that with the Lord. My heart right. I make a confession to the entire church. But I'd much rather obey than sacrifice. I'd much rather do what He asked me to do, whether it's simple or great. Whether it's going to hurt me or help me, it doesn't matter. As long as it helps the kingdom of God. Even if it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't matter. As long as it makes sense to God. He's not going to ask me to do anything that won't bring glory to Him. Amen? So I want you to pray, Lord Jesus, teach me to be obedient. As you were obedient, even unto death. Amen? That's our example. Let's follow Him. Amen? Let's follow Jesus. So I hope when you leave, you begin to say, Lord, tune my ears in. Help me to hear what the Spirit is saying to me. Amen. Father, anoint these ears. Anoint these ears right now. Each one here, anoint their ears, so that when they leave this assembly, they will begin to hear your voice, and they will learn to say, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. And I'll thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen. Could we stand? These altars are always open. If you don't know the Lord as your Savior, you've never accepted Him as the Lord and Savior of life, these altars are always open to come and kneel before your Maker and say, Lord, come into my heart. Save me from my sin. If you're here this morning and maybe this message has touched your heart and you're struggling with obedience in certain areas of your life, and you want to seal the deal with God and say, Lord, I'm going to leave this place. I'm going to leave here being obedient to you. I want you to come to these altars. Find a place and say, Lord, just help me to hear your voice. Help me to obey your voice. Get me in tune with you. Spend a little time here before you leave. Let God work in your life. And if you have to go, God bless you. But be listening to that voice from heaven and learn to say yes. God bless you.